What's doing, everybody? Welcome to First Class Fatherhood. I'm Alec, and before I hit you with today's interview, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the link in the description so you can listen to all of the interviews I've done with so many tremendous dads, including Dana White, Deion Sanders, Tony Hawk, and so many others. Now let's get going with today's interview. Joining me now, First Class Father, Diego Magdaleno. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Oh, yes, we are ready. We're coming with fire.
All right, let's start it right here. How many kids do you have? How old are they?
I have one son. His name is Diego Magdaleno. He's a Fuego .5. He's a little version of me. He's amazing. He's what changed he changed everything about me. You know what I mean? I became a father, and that's a big responsibility. And it's something that I look forward to for the rest of my life because I have a great father. And my father's been my hero ever since I was a kid. You know, growing up boxing, my father always wanted me to be a soccer player. That didn't work out. He named me after a soccer player, Diego Maradona. So growing up, his thing was, get me in soccer, and I have soccer jerseys since I was four years old. About my son's 3 years old right now, and he knows what to do with the boxing gloves. He puts them on, and he saw the pictures I forwarded over to you. He puts the boxing gloves on, and he's like, "All right, Dad, let's fight." And no one taught him, but he's right-handed, and he gets in the southpaw position. You know what I mean? So it's one thing that he's looking at me already and imitating things that I do, which is very, very, I have to be cautious because he's smart enough to know if Daddy's doing this, then it's okay for me to do it. You know what I mean? So I have to lead by example, and it's a huge responsibility for me.
Yeah, very well said. Yeah, and I love the boxing game myself. I grew up around it and just, always watching it and following it, learned how to box at an early age. And I think it's great for my older two boys, especially when they're having big arguments. Let's get in the backyard. I throw the boxing gloves on and let them bang it out. And it's one of the best ways to just let them handle things. Now I got to get them with the headgear and everything because they're starting to throw haymakers at each other, Did you do a like a gender reveal to find out what you were having with Diego, or did you guys wait till the end to find out?
No, we didn't. As soon as I wanted to know, I was too anxious, too eager to find out what it was. So we went and we did the 4D that what is it?
The ultrasound.
The ultrasound, yeah. I was excited as soon as I found out it was a boy. I was like, yes. I had a name picked out, which wasn't it was just a little obvious that I was going to use do a smaller version of me. It was like growing up, I was like, I need a Diego. There's not one. My sister actually wanted to name my nephew Diego, and I told her no. I was like, no. In case I have a boy, I'm taking that name.
You called it.
I sure did. Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's amazing. My oldest is 13 and my youngest is 5, and it's amazing the advances in the technology with the ultrasounds because it's like now it's like 4K Ultra HD. Like it's amazing the video you get. If you could, Diego, please just take a minute here to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Well, I started boxing as a young age, 8 years old. You know what I mean? On the way to soccer field, this is how it happened. One day, my dad was taking me to soccer practice, and on the way there was a boxing gym, and you see the big garage doors open, and the bags are swinging. You can see the boxing ring inside, and I looked over. I was like, "Hey, Dad, what's that over there?" He's like, "Oh, the fights we watch at our neighbor's house." Because at that time we were watching the Chavez Jr. or Chavez, taking over the world. The Mike Tyson, he was big in that 95, 96 time, and that's when I started boxing, and it was just an explosion of fights, real good fights, and me being in the LA area, my dad, he had the opportunity to take me to one of the professional fights at the Olympic Auditorium, which was huge for me, one of the first pro fights I went to, and at that gym is where I got a taste of what leather felt like, and what it tastes like. So ever since then, I got in there with a bigger kid, and I got beat up my first time I sparred. But for me, it was going back and using the anger. I was crying. I went home crying that day, but I wanted to get back in. I was so eager to get back in the ring and and beat this kid up. But it wasn't until I moved to Vegas where I learned the discipline of boxing, and I learned it through my old coach, Kelsey Banks, who I give a lot of credit to. Everything that I've learned, at a young age, he had me, my first 36 fights amateur, I won because of him. And he is also the reason why I'm a southpaw fighter. I'm actually, like I mentioned before, I'm right-handed, but I fight in the southpaw position.
Yeah, that's awesome, Diego. And I know now today the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has gotten so popular. Obviously the UFC has gotten so popular, but really I miss the old school boxing, like what you were talking about there, in like the mid '90s, early '90s, when you had guys like Felix Trinidad and Pernell
Yes,
Whitaker and
right.
even Justin Vargas or Fernando Vargas, like all
Yes.
them guys.
Uh-huh.
Boxing was so awesome to watch. I look forward to like Tuesday night fights, and it seems like it's making a bit of a bounce back here of boxing in general. Who were the fighters that you looked up to and wanted to emulate growing up?
Well, Chavez, I mentioned, Chavez was a great body attack, you know what I mean? And he had a huge following. But the one that really got me was Oscar De La Hoya, because he trained at the gym that I started at in East LA. And I got the chance to see him when he was at the parade in downtown LA after he won the gold medal. So that was kind of inspiring for me. That's when I got a glimpse of what amateur boxing could get me, and where boxing in general can take me to.
Yeah, very cool. And you spoke there a little earlier about how becoming a dad kind of changed your perspective on life. Has becoming a father changed you as a boxer in any way?
It has. It has. One thing I did learn with fatherhood is patience. And in the ring, you can see everything if you're patient. If you be patient in the ring and you box that way, you don't go off of emotion. You can see and box a lot better that way. So patience is one thing that I've learned.
Yeah, very cool. And obviously it takes, a lot of discipline to be a fighter. But what type of disciplinarian are you when it comes to being a dad so far here? Are you a spanker, a timeout guy? How do you
Well,
handle discipline?
yeah, growing up, it was old school. We got our asses spanked, by my parents and stuff like that. But you learn from that. You know what I mean? Now, kids are walking around with cell phones. You can't do that. No, but what I've learned is, yeah, be a little patient. One thing that I learned was, you got to learn to communicate. You know what I mean? And at 3 years old, you can communicate with a 3-year-old. They do understand. They are so smart. They pick up and they absorb everything. So I'm taking it real slow, and I'm learning from how I grew up versus what's gonna work for me now as a parent.
Yeah, it's amazing how much has changed. My father had me when he was 50 years old. He was born in 1930, and he grew up with a completely different style of discipline himself, which he
Right.
used. Now, for myself, I kind of find it hard to even imagine applying that kind of discipline or that kind of. I mean, there's a big difference. Don't get me wrong here between beating a child
Right.
and slapping or spanking a child. So.
Uh-huh.
But I do find it effective until you can, like you said, communicate with them and they have an
Mhm.
understanding of what you're talking about.
Right. So yeah, everything has its limitations.
Yeah. Now, do you bring your son to the fights yet? Has he seen you in the ring live, or do you keep him away from that so far?
Yeah, I haven't. I haven't. The way I have it right now is I'm no longer with his mother. But he hasn't been. He does come to the gym with me, and he loves to watch Daddy spar. And the last time I was in the ring sparring, he sat right beside the ring, and just like a kid watching TV, put his hands on his cheeks, and he was watching Daddy spar. You know what I mean? And he loves it. He loves it. It doesn't take him. It doesn't take anything out of him. He doesn't get emotional. He understands that Daddy gets in the ring, and for work, Daddy gets in the ring, and he boxes. And I was like, and I'll tell him before I leave to the gym, like, hey, Daddy's going to box, and you see him start shadowboxing. Okay, and he'll give me a kiss goodbye. You know what I mean? But he, like I said, he's very responsive, and he's very smart.
Yeah, that's awesome, Diego. And you mentioned there that you're no longer with his mother. And I have a lot of single dads that come on the show and many that listen. And one of
Yeah.
the things that's usually difficult, and I'm curious to hear your answers, at what point in a new relationship would you feel comfortable or have to get to in order to introduce your son to a new potential spouse?
At the point of where he feels comfortable, you know what I mean? He has to know who that other person is, and I have to be comfortable with that same thing. You know what I mean? I have to really dig deep into looking into somebody else, because putting someone else in his life is gonna be a big change, especially at the age that he's at. You know what I mean? He doesn't understand and know certain things, but if someone's treating him like a mother, he's a kid. He's gonna gravitate to what feels like mom. You know what I mean? So I have to be very careful about that. You know what I mean? The relationship with me and his actual mother, I knew very like as soon as we maybe three months after the relationship that it just wasn't gonna work out. You know what I mean? Before then, it sounded good, and I thought, I always wanted kids. She didn't want to, but one day she was like, "Hey, I'm ready." But turns out it wasn't what I thought. I felt a little bit conned by it, but I chose to leave that relationship, and I chose it for the better of my son and for myself. I didn't realize, and it's kind of hard for me to say and speak out of, because I haven't really spoken about it. But I was in an abusive relationship, and me, it's hard for me to say that because I'm a boxer. You know what I mean? Like, how can I be abused? Is what I kept asking myself, even afterwards. I was like, I'm a fighter. I can't be abused. Like, those things can't happen to a fighter. But yeah, I was verbally abused, and one day just she took it too far, and I was physically abused, and that's where the whole relationship just changed. And I was like, look, my son can't grow up in that environment, and he can't grow up thinking that that's okay. So I chose to leave that relationship.
Yeah, and Diego, I think it's incredible, awesome to hear you speak like that, because right now we got a fatherless problem going on in our society. It's a crisis that's going on right now in our country. With way too many kids are growing up without a father in the home, and
Right.
many of the dads will hit me with excuses of, "Oh, you don't know the relationship I had with the child's mother." And
Yeah.
I don't see that as anything but just an excuse. I mean, we got to stay active in our kids' lives, and I love the
Yeah.
fact that you're doing that, and you did it because it's best for your child.
Yeah, and after that whole breakup, she did go to jail. And I've always had majority custody of our son, even now. You know what I mean? And I've been a father. Uh, he's all I have, and all he has is me. Is how I see things, and it may sound a little aggressive, but just the way when he sees me, when he's grasping around me, and he calls me dad, and the tight little imprints that he leaves on my face from when he's holding me, like those things mean something to me. It's genuine, it's real. You know what I mean? And I mean that much to him. So it's a translation of energy, and that's how he feels towards me. So that I have to be very cautious of how I kind of nurture that kid.
Yeah.
So and that's what makes big changes. It makes me think before I do.
Yeah, very well said, Diego. And you got a big fight coming up here shortly with Austin Dulay. What can we expect to see in the fight?
Oh, this is gonna be a great fight. I've been in the ring with First of all, I want to take a time and a chance to give my coaches, because I've reorganized my whole boxing team. I'm working with Bones Adams, who I've known since I was 9 years old. Funny story about that is when I first met Bones, he came over to the gym and he brought his title that he had, and there were calling the kids and asking for pictures. So I quickly ran to the bathroom. I was, working out. I ran to the bathroom, washed my face and washed my head, did my hair a little bit so I could get a picture with him. And we still laugh about it to this day. But he's been a great help for this camp, and he's made me see and do things differently. He's made the corrections that I need for this fight, so it makes me feel super confident getting into this fight, especially with the southpaw. You know what I mean? I haven't seen too many southpaw fighters, but I know one thing, that the guy that I'm fighting, he lost. His only loss was to a southpaw fighter. He switched up on him in maybe the third round and started giving him some hell. So that's my advantage going into this fight. I definitely do have the ring experience over him too.
Yeah, and being a natural righty, do you ever switch at all yourself during the fights, or you stay to the game plan and always fight in the southpaw position?
I've switched in my fights before, yeah, and I know how to. So it's one thing that I've worked with my coaches. Starting out as a right-hander, I know I got that down, but I just feel confident in the southpaw position. You know what I mean? Especially with my right hand. But at any given time, I can switch up, and if I see where I can, I'll definitely do so.
Wow, yeah, that's extremely useful to have that in the toolbox there.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
what about as far as the future here for you, Diego? What kind of plans or goals do you have? Did you sidestepped into real estate?
I
What
sure
kind of plans
did.
do you have for the future here?
This is a whole new ball game. The real estate is a whole new game plan, and the market here in Vegas is definitely growing. The population is growing. We there's a lot of good things coming to the Vegas area. You know what I mean? You have the Raiders, one of the biggest football. They're bringing in a whole crowd, a whole wave of people from California alone. You know what I mean? We have Amazon, we have Google. The Google office is now going to be put out in Henderson, which is only 25 minutes away from Vegas. But there's a lot of things growing in the real estate market here in Vegas, and I'm one of the only boxers taking a step into the real estate market, and I'm going to use it to my advantage. You know what I mean? I'm going to be the real estate champion for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I interview a lot of highly successful people on the podcast here, and almost all of them have some type of stake in real estate. So it's
Yeah.
definitely a game that you want to be involved in, myself
Yeah.
included here, as I get on my own self.
Yeah.
Um, Last thing I want to hit you with here, Diego, I love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about to be father who's out there listening?
Um, yeah, new advice for new fathers is be patient and take your time. You know what I mean? It's a growing process. I am not perfect. No one is going to be perfect, but really pay attention to what your kids' needs are. You know what I mean? Go out there and just pay attention to them, listen to them, and just analyze the whole situation before making a move.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. This has been an honor for me. I got to say, Diego Magdaleno, you are a first class father all the way, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time on first
Thank
class
you so
fatherhood.
much. Thank you so much.